The best of money matters. Wealth Tracker.
Welcome to the Wealth Tracker, where we dive into the uncharted territories of niche investment strategies that promise to redefine wealth. Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong. Now, gold prices firmed near one-month highs hit earlier last week. Further gains in safe haven bullion were, however, limited as Hamas and Israel reached a deal for a ceasefire in Gaza after 15 months of conflict and heightened Middle East tensions. Gold rallied to multiple record highs and is still up nearly 50% since the war began in October 2023. Now, some analysts say, though, more gains for gold are on the horizon, with others even seeing gold prices reaching above $3,000. So what's the outlook for gold in 2025? Will gold shine even brighter this year? Well, to find out more, joining me now is Shaokai Fan, who's a head of Asia Pacific, excluding China, and global head of central banks at the World Gold Council. Shaokai, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Hongbin.
Thank you so much for joining me. Shaokai, let's have some recap here. How did the gold market fare in 2024? Were there any surprises for you? What were some of the key themes that moved the market?
Gold did very, very well in 2024, up about 25% in U.S. dollar terms, even higher in Sing dollar terms. I think you alluded it in your intro, but gold hit 40 new all-time highs in 2024. Wow. So it was a good year overall. In terms of themes that moved the market, we had a lot of resilience from Chinese retail investors, especially in the first half of the year. A lot of Chinese retail investors were buying gold as other asset classes in that country were just not doing that well. So I think that was a major theme that moved the market last year.
I see. Well, as we kick off 2025, what are some of the key trends that will shape the gold market this year, especially amid global uncertainty?
I think global uncertainty is probably a key word for key trends this year to look out for. Of course, with the new administration coming into office in Washington later today, we might see a lot of new policy changes, maybe uncertainty or unpredictability in American policy. So I think that's probably a major trend that might shape the gold market. Of course, beyond that, there's the rate cuts from the Fed, whether there'll be 2 or 3 this year. I think that'll also be a factor.
I see. Well, speaking of record highs, we've seen last week gold hit a one-month high, with spot gold gaining 0.3% to $2,704 per ounce. What's behind the rally?
It's actually quite interesting because we actually saw the Fed become a little bit more hawkish last month, and that typically is bad news for the gold price. But gold actually went higher. It highlights sort of a weakening of that traditional relationship where a stronger U.S. dollar is worse for gold. And I think that's partly because there's just a lot of non-Americans buying gold these days for other reasons. And I think that will be a factor in 2025 as well.
Okay, you mentioned non-Americans buying gold for some of the reasons. What are some of the reasons then?
So, as I said, earlier on last year, we had a lot of Chinese retail buying. And that was because of a slowing economy there, rising U.S.-China tensions, as well as just underperformance in other asset classes. So I think Chinese investors were looking toward gold as a way to diversify. Beyond that, central banks around the world have been major buyers of gold. And they've been buying mostly as a hedge against geopolitical risk and to maintain control over other risks as well. So not directly related to U.S. monetary policy.
I see. Well, I think the million-dollar question here is, can we see the bullish momentum continuing throughout the year?
I think obviously gold has had a record-breaking year last year already. This year might see continued strength for gold as well. Whether we hit new highs is, not up to me, of course. But one thing that is left to be seen is, will central banks continue to buy as much gold because Trump is taking office, and it might lead to more unpredictability in global affairs. And that was the main theme for why they were buying so much gold as well. We've seen the Chinese central bank returning to buying in the last few months, and that might give some reason for Chinese individual investors to buy more gold, especially during now as we head into the festive season for Chinese New Year.
I see. Well, some analysts say gold prices could hit $3,000 an ounce by the end of this year, 2025. Even if the value of the U.S. dollar continues to rise, could that be a possibility to reach $3,000 for gold?
I think it's definitely a possibility. Of course, the World Gold Council doesn't forecast gold price. We don't have our own view. But I think that even with the dollar rising and interest rates in the U.S. going up, that relationship between gold and the dollar has actually weakened over the last year or so. So we might even see gold prices go up despite a stronger dollar.
I see. Well, you talked about the gold and U.S. dollar relationship there. I mean, their relationship is considered to have an inverse relationship. So how can gold prices hit that level even with the greenback rising? I mean, what factors can lead to the gold still rallying behind a stronger dollar?
I think it's a lot of investors who are not particularly focused on U.S. monetary policy specifically when they make an investment decision about gold. So maybe Chinese retail investors, like I said before, they might be buying gold because other asset classes in China are just not doing very well. So they're buying gold as a hedge, for instance. Some central banks out there might be buying gold because they want to protect against a less certain world and a more volatile world. Even if that means the dollar is rising, they're buying more gold because they think gold is a good hedge against these unpredictable moments. So I think, a growing number of non-American or non-U.S. focused investors buying more gold has led to a weakening of this relationship.
I see. Well, let's talk about the impact of U.S. and the prices of gold here. Donald Trump, he will be sworn into office in just a couple of hours, and he brings along with him new proposed economic policies as well as tariff threats. Shaokai, will the new administration and its tariff debates have a significant impact on gold's role in the economy?
I think that one impact might just be that tariffs might impact the world economy and maybe throw off the world economy from its current course. So it just adds a higher degree of uncertainty and unpredictability. And traditionally, gold has done well during those periods because it's always managed to be a way that people manage these risks. It's a safe haven asset. So that's one aspect. Right now, we don't think that Trump, it's uncertain, of course, but I don't think he might impose tariffs specifically on gold imports into the U.S. But I think because of the possibility of those tariffs, we've already seen some price differentials starting to emerge between gold prices specifically in the U.S. and gold prices outside the U.S.
I see. Well, on the note of the economy here, as inflation remains a focal point, will sticky interest rates create, challenges for consumer confidence and demand for, say, gold jewelry and coins?
That's a good question because it comes right off of those potential tariffs under the Trump administration. Yes, traditionally, when there's higher inflation, people often turn to gold as a way to hedge against that inflation. So I think a more challenging inflationary environment might be better for gold.
I see. And earlier in our conversation, you mentioned there that China's central bank had a lot of gold purchases. Do you see China's central bank continuing their trend of more gold purchases? And are there any other central banks that you see will, further increase their gold purchases as well?
Yeah, the Chinese central bank gold buying has been quite interesting because they bought quite a bit of gold in 2023 and bought some more in 2024 and then didn't announce any new purchases until November of this year. So they went quiet for about 6 months. Now, we don't know how much gold they're actually buying, of course, because they've had a history of not reporting, at least in a timely manner, the gold buying. But I do think that there is a strong case for them to continue buying more gold. And given the size of the central bank reserves in China, they can buy a lot more gold. Outside of China, central banks of Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, India, and even here in Singapore, the MAS, they've been adding gold in recent years for various reasons. And I think that trend will likely continue.
I see. Well, overall, given all of these factors, what's the outlook like for gold for this year?
I think it might continue to be a strong year for gold, but of course I need to emphasize that we don't forecast the gold price. But the underlying factors that influence gold demand are still going to be quite strong. I think that, like I said, central banks are still going to be buying. Individual investors have shown a resilience to buying gold despite higher interest rates and despite the well-performing assets in technology stocks, for instance, even cryptocurrencies. Despite those factors, gold has still done quite well with investors still buying. So I think that'll continue in 2025.
I see. And before we let you go here, Shaokai, are there any uncertainties investors should take note of that could impact gold prices moving forward?
I think policy uncertainty has to be the biggest one. Whether or not Trump will introduce tariffs, whether those tariffs might impact gold, whether it'll lead to a fragmentation of the U.S. gold market. There are tariffs around gold in the U.S. I think that might be an uncertain factor. I think the broader global uncertainties are things that investors should be more aware of. Of course, gold does a good job in managing uncertainties.
I see. Well, thank you so much, Shaokai, for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Shaokai Fan, who is the head of Asia Pacific, excluding China, and global head of central banks at the World Gold Council. This has been the Wealth Tracker with me, Hongbin Jeong.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.